always stands out as an enthralling encounter, whatever the stage in the season. Well, now it's a formidable barrier for Milan. For so long they've looked to be the champions-elect, but their lead has been slightly reduced to 5 points. And last Tuesday they were beaten, knocked out of the Italian Cup by Juventus. And as last November's 1-1 draw with Inter showed, anything is possible in derbies. Inter kick off, hoping to be inspired by the considerable challenge of taking on not just their old rivals, but this unbeaten Milan, unbeaten in the league, but with that hint of vulnerability against Juventus, who knocked them out of the Italian Cup. Although the side slightly below strength last Tuesday. This an occasion really where current form counts for very little indeed. When you look back at this fixture over the last 3 seasons, with Milan officially the home side of these two giants of the Italian game that share this San Siro stadium. Over the last 3 years, Inter have won all 3. If they do so today, well, the shockwaves will be felt all around the Italian game, all around the world. Van Basten. The Inter defence without Ferri will be the weaker for that. Montanari has come in. Inter can point to a run of 8 games unbeaten in the league, but they've drawn 6 of those. They found it very, very hard to score goals. Referee Graziano Cesari. Play go on there as Berti claimed the foul, and it was this referee who wrongly sent off Van Basten back in November when Milan beat Roma here, in case of mistaken identity. Here's Frank Rijkaard. Franco Baresi, who was sent off last derby. Ivani wearing number 7 today. Battistini trying to get the tackle in and does so. For all their failings in front of the opposition's goal this season, Inter have been a tough nut to crack defensively. Maldini, Van Basten. Franco Baresi, whose older brother Beppe is one of the Inter substitutes today. This is the 213th Milan derby. 81 wins for Milan, 73 for Inter. Zenga's been through it all before. Battistini's played in it for both sides. He had a spell with Milan at the start of his career. And Inter, you would feel, would want to just take some of the early heat out of the game if they can. Donadoni, pressed by Bremer. Bremer and Klinsmann, the 2 Germans. The third noticeable by his absence, Lothar Matthäus, who's not had a happy season in truth with Inter. His so-called private life has become very public. He's left home and moved in with an Italian television personality who's based in Rome, and she's saying that she hopes Matthäus plays for Roma next season. So there's been some scandal around at San Siro, as well as plenty of good football, and Antonioli shows his paces there, coming out to stop Nicola Berti cashing in with one of those clever runs from midfield. The goalkeeper had to commit himself then, and he made an important save. Francesco Antonioli in for Rossi today, He has been playing in the cup games for Milan. He's an Italian under-21 international as well. So he's by no means a novice, and you would have guessed that from his contribution a few seconds ago. Bertie's tackle. Bertie, who's not 100% fit, but he's got the type of positive personality very much needed in these games. He's been saying all week that whatever happened he would play, and he's been as good as his word. So with 5 minutes gone, the first real sight of goal comes for the underdogs. Underdogs they definitely are, although Inter are fifth in the table. When you think they've only scored collectively one more goal than Van Basten's got himself this season. Well, that's the kind of nerves that one would expect from Inter in these circumstances, but not particularly from Zenga. It was an unkind bounce, there was no doubt about that, but the goalkeeper should have had his body behind it. And Milan can't make anything of the gift of the corner. Cesari plays it back. He was sent off in the cup tie on Tuesday along with Kohler of Juventus. It was a bad-tempered affair. Cavani working hard to try and prevent the goal kick, but in that respect he was unsuccessful. Who's unlikely to be an Inter player next season, when the whole question of foreigners is perhaps going to be changed, but there are murmurings here of players discontent, the Italian Players Union not happy with the possible increase of foreign players at each club from 3 to 4. There's some militancy afoot in that respect. Milan. Benzman taking it away from Baggio and helping him out. And here's Desiderio. But he's got well forward again to his right, and Klinsmann as well. Desiderio goes all the way, and down he goes! And Inter say they should have a penalty. They surround referee Cesari. And Desiderio gets a yellow card for protesting. It was a wonderful show of enterprise from the midfield player, and he felt that it deserved the reward of a penalty. He kept on going. Out came Antonioli. Desiderio got a touch to it. You must say that in similar incidences I've seen penalties given, but referee Cesari seeing it from a different angle. The cross from Paolo Maldini. Maldini again, allowed to shoot, and although he is by design the left back in a British style system, zonal marking, defenders spread across the pitch, he will come forward with real menace. Not quite his equivalent really on the left for Inter, who operate a different system. Desiderio still fuming inwardly, unsure. Bertie. Bertie, who got the winning goal in this fixture last season for Inter. And Siro exchanging words. Free kick's been given. Taken by Battistini, looking to the head of Klinsmann. In comes Dino Baggio. Look at Klinsmann guiding the ball infield then. Costa Curta impeding Baggio. Free kick to Inter. Klinsmann, whose head was cut here last Sunday with a coin thrown from one of his own fans. Not aimed for Klinsmann. It was Inter against Parma in an incident which had Andy Bremer booked, incensing the supporters. But it was a very sorry affair. Inter have been fined this week by the Italian authorities. Desideri for Bremer. Out came Baresi. It's all a bit obvious. Antonioli out effectively, and a little pat of support from Berti. It's nice to see. What a way to your debut in the first division. Luis Suarez, who is in charge of Inter until the end of the season. It seems that he will be replaced by Osvaldo Bagnoli. That's the gossip here in Milan. Bagnoli currently in charge of Genoa, where he's done a splendid job, and previously, back in the mid-80s, an inspiring coach for Verona, who won the championship against all the odds. Inspiring Inter here. Here's Berti. Well, he's very keen to be a winner today, Nicola Berti. Although he was 25 last Tuesday, he's still got that rawness in his play, the impetuosity of youth. Klinsmann working back against Rijkaard, forcing the error. Well, you'd never bet against a draw when these two clubs lock horns, but if there is a definite result, it's going to be a rare defeat on this ground for one team or the other. Inter unbeaten in home games this season. This technically is an away game for them. And Milan, of course, haven't lost anywhere in the first division since May the 19th last season, when they went down at Bari. They haven't been beaten here for 13 months now. Atalanta had the honour of lowering their colours a year ago last month. Donadoni. Albertini gets it back to Maldini. Van Basten. Bianchi up and down the right-hand side, having to do more in his own half. Baresi. Dirty again. He can't keep putting himself about like this without incurring the referee's displeasure, and it's one foul too many already. But he's a competitor, and Inter are going to need everybody to have that feel. That's unnecessary, and in fact Baresi made sure he was booked by writhing about then. If he just picked himself up, maybe the referee would have taken a more lenient view. Dry throat for Luis Suarez. The thirst caused by the nerves, I'm sure. Tassotti. Here's Donadoni. Costa Curta, not a great deal of angle on that, but it was straight at the head of Van Basten, which is good enough for Milan. Ivani drills it in, hoping the teammate might run across the path of the ball. Here's Bremer. Cut out by Rijkaard. Van Basten allowed to turn. That might be a costly error for Inter. Albertini just coming on it a little too quickly. Here's Berti, concentrating on the ball this time. Klinsmann. Bianchi. Not able to hurdle a late challenge by Maldini. Referee Cesari is relatively inexperienced to be handling a game of this passion. It's only the 15th game in the Italian First Division that he's had responsibility for. 30 shot. Raymer, in comes Bianchi. He got there before Maldini, who was labouring somewhat. And now Bianchi feels there was a push, and there was certainly hands laid on by Maldini, but Bianchi, was he on his way down already? He missed the ball, and Maldini would have been better off with his arms down by his side. Twice in the opening 15 minutes, penalty appeals for Inter, twice waved away by this 35-year-old referee. Ankle tapping on Van Basten by Marcello Montanari. Can't be anyone better at this particular job than Marco Van Basten anywhere in the world, playing the world's most popular game. It has been a vintage season, which is surely going to be crowned with the championship, but there's still a barrier or two for Milan to get past. They have to play Torino next week, which won't be easy. Torino fired up by their success against Real Madrid to get through the semi-final of the UEFA Cup. They play Ajax from Amsterdam in the final of that European competition. Sampdoria also through to play Barcelona at Wembley in the Champions Cup final. So, although Genoa went out of the UEFA Cup, it's been a good week for the Italian clubs. Cavani for Milan, looking to capitalise on the speed of Massaro, and a wayward back pass by Bergami. The defender who rarely puts a foot wrong has been stalwart of Inter, indeed of the Italian game, since the early 80s. Played in the World Cup final, of course, as a teenager in '82, a World Cup winner. That was a mistake to give the corner here. Milan gets to it though for Inter. Suddenly back to Evani. Massaro puts it on. It was Donadoni's volley. It was not really set to direct for where he wanted it to go, to the relief of Zenga. There was an offside, but the referee says no, goal kick. Take it from the proper place. Inter can point to the fact they've not conceded a goal on this ground in their last 8 games here. But then none of those games have been against opposition quite of the calibre of today's. But they're giving as good as they're getting, maybe more so far. A match that always has the surprise element to it. Giuseppe Bergami, still only 28. Montalan. The lack of goals that have been such a dampener for Inter this season. Klinsmann, the leading scorer, with 6. Mateus, who's out for the rest of the season, of course, and Cesari with 4 apiece. And not much else. It's 23 in 28 games. No sort of way really to satisfy the support. Bianchi. Berti. Now Desideri. Well, it wasn't much at the end of the move, but again the passing suggested there might be some penetration from Inter. Cesari. Siro getting it down to Donadoni. Albertini tripped right on the edge. Ball came off Montanari. Battistini couldn't repair the damage without possibly adding to it. Albertini was a bit too quick for him. And with 20 minutes played, Milan eyeing up the angles at the free kick. Zenga wanting the wall to cover that left-hand post, but being aware that Ivani with the left foot has a favourable angle. Although he often goes more for blasting than clipping it, and in the end it doesn't come from that quarter at all. And Zenga says, don't worry. Marco van Basten, who's quite new to taking free kicks in these situations and scored against Bari recently, a goal that he described as his most satisfying of the season simply because he'd never done it before, Baggio-like. He was looking for a repeat dose there. Cesari very much in the thick of things for Inter, but he wasn't offside. It was Contelan coming back. Rezi was struggling to stay with Stefano Desideri. Desideri comes from Rome, of course made his name with Roma. Thought he joined Juventus and then found himself moved on quickly to Inter. Albertini. Basten can't keep it in. He likes to make those runs into channels towards the corner of the penalty areas. He can do it both sides. For the moment, really, Arrigo Sacchi, the predecessor of Capello, in charge of the team. It was something that he worked on with great distinction. In fact, have become so good in Italy that there's a fair amount of jealousy, particularly for the wealth of their president, Silvio Berlusconi. But money doesn't guarantee absolute success every time, happily. Great control by Van Basten. Oh, and Rijkaard claiming that he was being bought there. Referee Cesari is being consistent here. Terrific play by Van Basten to control it, juggle it, and then cross it beyond Zenga. And Rijkaard had a problem getting to it at the far post. Nothing given. Forward by Tassotti, bringing onto the head of Baggio. Here's Bremer. Clever play by Costa Curta, facing his own goal and facing, for a fraction of a second, the possibility of a catastrophe if he'd miscontrolled. I'm sure it never even crossed his mind. 20 minutes to go to half-time. Of goal-mouth incidents, but derby games rarely are that. What they are is matches of great tension to the participants, to the supporters all around the city of Milan. It's all quiet except here, where there's so much pride at stake, and obviously the points are very precious, particularly for the team wearing red and black. Albertini. Yankee just reacting the quicker of the two number 7s to Albertini's intentions. Ivani was guilty just for a moment of looking on, I think, believing that Albertini would shoot. Certainly a part of his game. Ivani's throw. Free kick to Inter. Difficult for Inter to please their supporters, given that the comparisons with Milan are all around, and they just don't have the financial clout of Berlusconi. Their president Pellegrini has been the subject of the wrath of the Inter fans that he hasn't done more to try and match Milan. Labouring here to keep Donadoni from getting in behind him, and he was unsuccessful, really. Andy Brehmer, who always catches the eye going forward down the left-hand side, but there's been a feeling in the game for some time now that he might be a weak link defensively, and Donadoni exposing that and earning Milan this free kick. Siro coming in at the near post. Happened in a blur, the header of the save. Coordinated set piece by Milan, superb handling by Zenga, and it was simply a rehearsal. Milan get another chance. Bastin calling for it, Maldini not to be ruled out. Rijkaard as well. Oh, Albertini didn't really have time for the second touch. Brehmer was playing them all onside. Tassotti. Here's Bianchi. That's the quarter in the way. Now Baresi. Milan settling to their familiar style. Berti stopping Ivani. Playing in a telling ball from the left-hand side. Milan's difficulties here at the outset, you feel, must have been in the mind. They have to apply themselves as if their opponents were any other but Inter, really. It's rather easier to say than do. Down goes Van Basten. Free kick to Milan, who weren't at their best in the opening minutes, looking like their true selves at the moment. Montalan just happy to get some distance into the clearance. Costa Curta. Baresi. Now Ivani. Well, Van Basten second to that, and was rightly penalised. Whether he was complaining more about the service than the decision, it seems more likely. Ivani wanting to get the ball into his feet, and he had a look, didn't he, Van Basten, and knew he wasn't going to make it. Montanari, who came to the club with Corrado Orico, who was the coach chosen to succeed Trapattoni last summer, but he only lasted to the turn of the year. And then came Luis Suarez, the Spaniard, who was such a great player for Inter here. It adds to the shape of the rivalry, really, that both coaches played for their respective sides. Berti, very quick to apologise to the referee. Booked already. Baresi says he wants him off. There's impetuosity again from Berti, bordering on a foolhardy foul. The referee has let him off this time, but one suspects if it happens again, he'll send him off. Costa Curta. Back goes Fontelan. Quickly getting players behind the ball to make it as difficult as they can for Milan. However talented the team is, and surely there are none better than Milan at club level, still very difficult to break down a defence. It's discipline, and Zenga behind them all, and he's fouled there. I think was pushing in any case. The collision with Van Basten was when Zenga was off the ground, although I must say it wasn't a great attempt to make the catch. Those who subscribe to the view, and I know there are plenty of you, that goalkeepers are allowed to play as though they're in cotton wool, might have been too pleased that the free kick was given. Catching Maldini. Van Basten. Here's Costa Curta. Knows what it's like to score in a derby. He did it here 2 years ago, but that day Milan lost 3-1. Maldini. Now Ivani playing wide on the left is more a passer of the ball than a dribbling player. Doesn't often get way behind the defences. At the moment Milan still playing in front of Inter. Van Basten is well hit, and in the end well held. Sheer force of numbers here and persistence they've got to facing the goal. Zenga clutched it. Headed by Maldini. Albertini. Here's Ivani. And Bianchi getting back to provide some extra cover. Wrong with that, says referee Cesari, who, as I said earlier, is not Van Basten's greatest friend. After what happened here against Roma earlier in the season, it was Serena who actually committed the foul, which the referee attributed to Marco Van Basten, which he dismissed Van Basten. That was the only punishment Van Basten got. The authorities recognised the error. Costa Curta. Luis Suarez would be happy to see his team get to half-time, still at 0-0. I think Inter would take the draw here. Milan, just in case Juventus can win every game that they've got left, really will feel that until it's mathematically certain they've won the championship, they've got to look to win every game. Berti, and it came too late for Klinsmann. He had nowhere to go. Early showing that he's got a fine throw. Albertini. Now Donadoni. Tracking him infield. Rijkaard. Sotti getting the better of Fontelan. Now Baresi. Easy enough to Albertini, who's tripped by Cesari now. It's a second yellow card, he's off. Cesari sent off for two bookable offences. And the calmest of expressions tilted those odds massively in Milan's favour. It was a reckless trip. When you've been booked, it really is totally unprofessional to do what Cesari did. He's paid the price. Cesari departs, fighting back the tears. Luis Suarez with no visible signs of anger, but well, it was uphill at the outset. The incline is even steeper now, but it's still 0-0. Van Basten, very nearly wasn't. That was a marvellous save by Zenga to beat out a swerving, dipping shot at a time when Inter's emotions were totally rattled by the departure of Cesari. Albertini. So, for the second derby this season, the red card is shown, and it's a yellow card for Baggio. In the first game, it was Franco Baresi who went off sensationally. And as we look again, and again it's Albertini who was the victim in a Cesari episode. Baggio finding him too fleet of foot. But given the number of defenders behind Baggio, again, it was a reckless thing to do. Albertini, by running with the ball, making it difficult for the defenders, but not impossible. Luis Suarez almost going through the motions. Can his players hear what he's saying? He wants to make a little switch, I'm sure, to get somebody back into midfield. Klinsmann will be left even more isolated up front now with a midfield player sent off. Well, Capello now wants his team to capitalise and quick. Basten in the same position from which he scored against Bari. Goes for Rijkaard, and it all goes wrong for Milan. One thing studying the Italian league does tell you that 11 playing against 10 is by no means the formality it can seem. The players do seem to get plenty of practice with regular red cards. Two minutes left in the first half. Ebani. Rijkaard. Inter have only lost 4 games this season. They've drawn 16. Since Suarez took over from Orico, they've drawn 8 of 12 and just lost the 1. He's going to need every ounce of energy they can muster here. It's hard enough playing with 11 against 11. Baresi knowing that he's got more chance of going forward. Well, he was honest then, he wanted to get the ball across, he'd have stayed down, might have added weight to the penalty claim. Rijkaard wasting it, really. That's easy to say after the event. Now, study this closely. Nicola Berti, wrapping a foot round Baresi, thought about the dive, then thought better of it. Obviously, he wouldn't get anything from this referee, who spent some time in the first half waving away penalty appeals. But had it been a penalty, you just wondered what fate might have fallen Berti. Inter might have gone from 10 men to 9 men. Nimble play on the ball by Tassotti. Baresi. the architect of the attack again. Maldini. And Baston dragging Montanari everywhere he goes. The cross not productive for Milan. Inter very close to getting to half-time, unscathed on the scoreline. But raised by Maldini. Always great interest in Italy whenever referees are appointed for First Division games, particularly though for this match. Cesari has had a lot of publicity over the past few days. Barney just running out of room right in front of our low camera. But really what plaudits can dish out for the work in the first half really have to go to Inter. Revived by their challenge here, and now that challenge is even greater. Albertini lurking in a position where he's tried to take on Inter. This time he opts for the pass and the cross towards the head of Alberigo Evani, who was moving in from his beat down the left-hand side. And that brings the first half to a close. Over the last 3 seasons, Inter have won this game 1-0, 3-1 and 1-0. But if they're going to make it 4 wins in a row, it's going to be a sensational achievement, having to play the entire second half with 10 men. Really, as Van Basten gets free, it's going to be a severe test of what they're capable of. Able to survive with 1 point, I would think it would need their best performance of a disappointing season. Klinsmann's willing running up front will give them an outlet, I'm sure. Montalan will funnel back down the left-hand side. He spent plenty of time doing that, even when Inter had a full complement. The header from Bergami, then Evani for Milan. Albertini coming out, and the ball driven against him, so he made his own luck then. Berti. And Baggio. Berti has been booked, leaving his foot in. Here's Costa Curta. For Milan, it's an exercise now in patience. In the way Inter are flying into the tackle still, whether the lessons of Desideri's experience have been learned. That was Klinsmann. Inter have everyone behind the ball. The free kick taken by Evani, just too high for Marco van Basten. Milan. Great show of initiative from him. Still Montalan. For Klinsmann. For neutrals watching, really Your heart goes out to Inter. They're playing gallantly. There aren't too many neutrals in the stadium. In the city of Milan, which has such a wide range of activities, but football very high on everyone's list of priorities. And that's the economics here and the fashion, the general level of culture. Nothing cultural about the foul by Maldini. Fuser getting ready perhaps to answer the call of Capello. Well, Bergami and referee Cesari enjoying that conversation. It hasn't always been that way when Inter their players have addressed the official. To role of substitute for most of the season, like a number of the Milan reserves, good enough to play in the first team of almost every other club in the division. It's a good pick by Fontelan. Klinsmann hit the outside of the post. Seems to look to smash and grab on the break. And Milan racked across the knuckles then. Klinsmann get there before Tassotti, and there wasn't too much Antonioli could have done about that. All bouncing out of the outside of the frame of the goal. The Italian teams do know how to reduce the difficulties in these circumstances. That really would have been desperate blow to Milan's morale. To lose to Inter would be harrowing enough. To lose their unbeaten record to a team playing with 10 men would be almost impossible to live with. But it's still 0-0, just over 5 minutes gone into the second half. Milan, who kept the ball on well for Klinsmann. She shot against the top of the post. Antonioli comes from the Italian town of Monza, his first club as well. He was with Milan 88 to 90, before he was loaned out last season. And again, he wonders why his defenders weren't first to the ball played into the Milan penalty area. Klinsmann rising to this challenge in more ways than one. Tassotti. Albertini. Madonnina. The policy here surely to use the full width of the pitch, try and pull the line of defenders away from each other. There's always Baresi coming from the back. Evani trying to get it in early. Tapped by Battistini that time. Getting on by Baresi. Evani's early cross. Raymer is happy to play it into the opposition's territory. Riker trying to redouble the Milan effort. Remember, Inter going into this game Mateus, without their best defender Riccardo Ferri. Mateus injured with a damaged knee that's made so many headlines over the past couple of days. And Ferri suspended. And Baston put it high and deep towards, Massaro headed it down for Albertini, and Milan believed that it was a cleanly given. The referee had blown before Albertini arrived on the scene against Massaro. I would believe, well, there was an elbow up on Bergami then. That's what the referee saw. Massaro really just jumping with that arm raised to just protect his own features. And it made contact with the back of Bergami's head. The joy was taken away from Milan abruptly. But here they come again. So admired all over the football world. Tapes of their displays this season, studied by all the top coaches who have laid down something of a blueprint for others to follow. It doesn't include miss-hit passes like that one from Rijkaard. It does include the speed and authority of Baresi now. There was no need for that. Klinsmann had fouled him, but Baresi, well, it's yellow and it could easily have been red for brandishing the elbow. Franco Baresi, who was sent off in the first derby of the season, was bundled over by Klinsmann. That was a foul, but that really was inexcusable. And if the referee had sent him off, well, you wouldn't have blamed him. You just can't throw your elbow into opponents like that. It's against the whole essence of the game. Franco Baresi knows better, and it's an example perhaps of the pressure on players in a match of this intensity that he did it. The referee, to my mind, reacted weakly. Bianchi, nothing weak about the shot. It was arrowing towards the bottom corner, and Antonioli did well to see it through the pack. Here's Donadoni. Of referees who, when they've sent a player off from one team, are often looking to even the score. They have the opportunity then to make it 10-aside. Here's Van Basten. Goal kick. Free kick. Against Marco Van Basten. With their work against Juventus. So one assumes that Roma have taken the lead. Costa Corta. Milan that want to do here is get a goal of their own. Really set off cause for celebration. Half an hour to go. Inter are still coping. And it's still 0-0. Trying to use the speed of Massaro. He's much quicker than Bremer, but the speed that was crucial was that on the ball. Milan are going to be the first to make the substitution. It's going to be Fuser. Just under half an hour to play. It's a straight swap in midfield. Fuser for 20-year-old Demetrio Albertini. It's been well advertised, the intentions of Milan for next season to get together virtually two teams of equal strength. They expect to play so many matches in the league, of course. That will be the usual 34. The European Cup they hope to be in, they expect to be in really at this stage, and the domestic competitions as well, the Italian Cup, other lesser trophies. Donadoni. Van Basten knew where Massaro was behind him, but he was also opposition, in particular Alessandro Bianchi, who he pushed in the back. Really has been the dominant force in terms of Milan's goal scoring, 22 out of their 56. Siro comes next with 6 goals this season. And another player who's really been occupying the opposition in that respect. Here's Fuser, who's come into play wider on the right, allowing Donadoni to get into the middle. His trade there. Rijkaard, Maldini, and it doesn't quite open up. Well, they're forcing the play, but they're not making clear-cut openings. Montanari had to leave his responsibilities with Van Basten then. Did it in the nick of time for Inter. Well, it was always going to be a long second half for Luis Suarez and his players. So far, so good. Having to fling himself into that tackle with Maldini. Got to the ball. That was important for Inter. What's worrying here is the amount of damage that he inflicted on himself. It may be that the referee will say, now, you've got to go off to prolong this treatment. Seems to be the tone. Referee Cesari's contribution. Well, it's not just a case of prolonging the treatment, I think it may well be the end of the match for Marcello Montanari, brought in today as the replacement for the suspended Riccardo Ferri. Serena having a good look at the situation, but it's Inter who have to assess the damage here and decide whether Montanari has any chance of coming back. Rijkaard, up comes Baresi. Out goes Berti and Baggio. Hold them in midfield. This is Donadoni. The man free is Mauro Tassotti. And they were lining up in the centre that time. Dumped down unceremoniously. Well, Milan haven't maximised these free kick opportunities so far in the game. Inter's flimsy resources to be tested by Evani. He was up to the challenge. Got just wider of the wall, and Senga having to come in behind his line of defenders. Still 0-0. We're coming up to the halfway point in the second half. Tassotti. Rijkaard, can he wriggle a way through? Baggio getting back. And, Montanari can't surely stay on for much longer. They pushed him back into the fray, and he's carrying now that leg. from Tassotti, out by Fontelan. All being played in Inter's half at the moment. But they're holding out heroically. That's one way to take the heat out of the situation, Kramer. Luis Suarez has got the replacement lined up for Montanari, and it's Pepe Baresi. It's a slow and painful retreat for Montanari. But Pepe Baresi, who's played in these occasions so often since his debut back in 1977, comes out to try and stop his brother's team winning the 2 points and winning all the local pride as well. Battistini. Costa Curta. Tassotti. Plenty of movement ahead of Costa Curta, but didn't risk a more difficult pass, played it safe to Rijkaard, on across to Donadoni. Now Van Basten. On that occasion, the policy of being deliberate, try and draw Inter out, and let them down. Still Inter who come closest to scoring, with Klinsmann rattling the outside of the post in the early minutes of the second half. Throw to Inter, taken by Berti. Here's Baggio. Again, you can see the difficulties that Milan are having. Old-fashioned looks being exchanged there amongst the players. They finally get forward with some flow to their play, and then Baresi almost overruns it. Baggio. Baresi gets it back. Inter trying to see it out here. Milan in a very strong position, able to turn it into a goal, and that might have provided it. From Donadoni's shot, and it would have been an own goal off the substitute Pepe Baresi. Instead it's a corner. Can Milan come up with their excellent set pieces here? They've worked the corner short, and Ivani's hit it too long in the end. Donadoni. It's a shirt almost dragged from his back by Baresi the elder. They don't take the free kick quickly. The referee might rightly letting the game go on. This is Fuza, who's not bad when it comes to firing away from outside the penalty area. Fontelan with a turn of speed. Fuza had the foul and coming back. Pair of heels for a moment, Vito Fontelan. Well, Suarez pacing around like an expectant father. Baresi's cross, headed out by Rijkaard, on by Fuza. Ebani, Fuza again. Time it breaks down, the Milan supporters voicing their discontent at their team. It's their home game, remember, so they have the greater representation around this splendid ground. Splendid in every sense, really, except the playing surface, which looks better from our camera angles than it in fact is. Ebani. Fuza kept on rising. a repetition of that unsavoury episode. Milan has quickly got on with the game, and Milan try to do the same. Rijkaard. Only trying to make an angle for him. Further away. There's Cesari, but it went to Donadoni. Really playing as a defender down the left-hand side. Klinsmann clattering into Baresi's block, Maldini's block rather, and it's a yellow card for Paolo Maldini. Once Klinsmann touched the ball, then Maldini was committed. He didn't pull out either, did he? Made sure that the ball was going forward, but Klinsmann wasn't going to catch it. Milan might feel that was worth a yellow card in those circumstances. He wouldn't have wanted to chase after Klinsmann then. Another obstruction. Such a violent one this time by Ivani. Can the 10 men here check on the card count? Get a goal against all the odds that seemed overwhelming but haven't overwhelmed Inter. Good play by Baresi, but he got caught up in his own magic then. Last turn, lost the ball. Only momentarily though, because here's Dino Baggio. Inter 15 minutes away from a draw which would be widely applauded for their performance, playing more than 50 minutes with 10 men, collecting some injuries as well. An unfamiliar shot, is it? An unfamiliar sight. Bertie on the ground, gesticulating at the referee. Sotti's tackle was badly timed, to say the least. And after that, it was Costa Curta coming in. Where was the ball? It was nowhere near Sotti's right foot. And it was Costa Curta on Fontalan. So, a free kick, no doubt, to Inter. Bertie. Here's Bremer. And they make off with the spoils here. Bianchi, and there is a chance to get forward. They're not holding back. Bianchi's cross, and Maldini took it away from the reserve goalkeeper. Ends in an offside. Well, the Inter fans really getting behind their team. They've been quick to criticise them this season with plenty of justification. They're recognising the work rate here and the refusal to give Milan the 2 points that would mean everything to them. Donadoni and Bastard. Rijkaard wanted to get closer. Kozak is closer. A header from Bergami. Now Ivani. Sustained pressure here. From the league leaders, it's Massaro who shoots in the end, the ball spinning away for the corner. How often have we seen this? Having the extra man is one thing, making it tell takes some nerve, takes some patience. And you have to take into account the extra determination of the 10 opponents that remain. They've certainly been valiant here for Inter. Klinsmann. Booted away by Bergami. Inter fortified by this 8-game unbeaten run, although wins have been few and far between. Used to avoiding defeat at San Siro. Making light of the absence of Matthäus and Serie before the game, and Cesari departure. And Such a shock to Inter and Luis Suarez when he was sent off 6 minutes before half-time. And Milan haven't been able to solve the puzzle. Rijkaard. This is Angelo Orlando. He's been in the team recently, but left out today to accommodate the return of Dino Baggio. Bremer. Here's Klinsmann. Cruiser, the factor that becomes more important as the match moves towards the closing minutes is just a fit. Inter are going to have to do a little bit of extra work, every player, and they weren't close enough to Van Basten then. Varney's best cross of the game so far. And Van Basten roared in to meet it. This time had space to set himself for the header, to put it wide. Well, with Berthi's departure, Inter are deciding to drag off a player who's been so committed to the cause. But he's undoubtedly weary. He's hardly been able to train recently. He's missed matches with injury. And one senses it's a wise move for Luis Suarez to get a fresh player on. Angelo Orlando, 10 minutes to go. Rijkaard. Inter able to keep the ball with their passing. It's more difficult the further forward they get, of course, where the fact that they're a man light is far more apparent. In their defending, they've left very few gaps. There's hardly been a crack for Milan to exploit. Been a great week for the league leaders. The loss to Juventus in the Italian Cup semi-final, a blow to their pride. They would be the more criticised of the two teams here if it stays goalless to the end. Montelan, Klinsmann, and they found a runner in support of him, which Dino Baggio, but in the circumstances that was something of a gamble for Inter. Nearly paid off. The endeavours here have taken their toll on Milan as well. It is a sapping afternoon, mentally as well as physically. The build-up is greater in this city than for any other league fixture of the season. Every player chased by the media to give his point of view. Every angle analysed. One thing in the past that hasn't been a feature of the derbies has been the red cards. We've had one in each game this season. But there haven't been too many down the years, despite the importance of the game. Who's now on that role of dishonour. And there are some questioning looks going on around the Milan players. What have they got to do to find an opening? It would be more encouraging for them if they were missing chances, but they just haven't made too many. There was the header from Van Basten, but that didn't come as close as Klinsmann did for Inter at the start of the second half. They try again through Costa Curta. Moving on into midfield from the back. Evani, Costa Curta. Here's Rijkaard. Now Tassotti. Milan, in the unselfish way, has typified Inter's response to adversity here. Baggio. Is this a chance for a sensational breakaway for Inter? It almost came for Klinsmann. Baggio is in distress. The referee lets the game go on, is entitled to do. So Inter are even more depleted. Van Basten, beautifully done for Evani. Now Rijkaard. Here comes Tassotti. Well, he plays it into a congested area, even though Massaro did meet it. And emotions which have been running high throughout, in danger of bubbling over again. Baggio, who was totally out of the game, down holding his leg, having taken the ball forward, and Van Basten wants to know what the linesman was flagging for. You can look back here at Baggio being caught by Costa Curta as he got the ball dangerously towards Klinsmann. Baresi really fight to win it back for Milan. And the header for Massaro for Milan wouldn't have counted, the whistle had gone. And Van Basten, as you saw, wanted to know why. This is Bianchi. Another surge from Inter. Montalan, the first to know that that was not what was required, but it's totally down to tiredness. Here comes Donadoni. Slid it through straight to Andy Bremer. If you take a broad view of a goalless draw here, it shouldn't harm Milan too much in the championship race. It won't please their supporters too much, the nature of the game. Clearly it's been here for them to win. But the honour's still with Inter while it stays at 0-0. Van Basten, Fuza, blocked by Beppe Baresi, helped one out by Orlando to Baggio. And every passing second, they're getting closer and closer to going off this pitch with their heads really held higher than the opposition. And that was a narrow squeak for them. Maldini. Cross goes Battistini. Bianchi trying to prevent Maldini crossing. Evani doesn't like to do that with his right foot, and then changing his mind there. The moment was lost. Out comes Beppe Baresi. It's good policy for Inter when they can, just to get the ball here and occupy Milan, but once they give it away, of course, if too many players are overcommitted, great holes are opening up. Bremer had to race back. And, he caught Fuza and took some of the mobility out of Milan. Rijkaard. Van Basten. Not easy for Rijkaard. Will it drop for Fuza? Oh! Well, it seemed that Inter had enough players around then. Well, Milan have had all the corners. Donadoni and Zenga with the type of goalkeeping that Inter really needed. It's bought them a little more time. And the linesman had seen something that caused him to raise the flag, presumably some pushing by Milan towards that near post area. There was some protesting from Bremer, it just has used up a few more seconds. Klinsmann has got a free kick. I wonder if they played 11 against 11 the entire game, whether they might have exploited the lack of experience of Antonioli in the Milan goal, the debutant. Siro goes down, free kick Quickly given, quickly taken. Costa Curta. Well won by Pepe Baresi. On go into here. Klinsmann. What will he do? Well, the angle's against him. He puts it back. He'd hoped towards Pepe Baresi. And there's little honour at the moment for Milan. The clash of the brothers. Heat of the battle, it's quickly forgotten. What a battle Inter have put up. Rijkaard. Now Tassotti. Now Fuze. Massaro in the middle. Massaro! Oh, they snatched it! In the closing seconds, crawl for Inter. Marvellous for Milan. Stunned for those wearing red and black on the pitch and around the stadium. It's a moment of jubilation. In truth, a rare chance against the team that have fought so hard, down to 10 men from the closing stages of the first half. But in the final moments of the match here, Massaro has made the game safe for Milan. A goal that really seemed beyond them. And unless Inter now find something that really has looked beyond them, except for the moment when Klinsmann hit the post. And that was when their mood was full of optimism. They were brave and prepared to see it out in the second half, but now they're shattered. Well, it was a simple sort of goal, and the marking that has been superb defensively for Inter wasn't there at the last critical moment. Cesari, who supplied the cross, maybe too much attention on Van Basten, who was pulling towards the far post. Stage of the season, it matters only to Milan that they win, not how they win. In a derby game, it matters only that you win as well. But Inter have been hard done by. Of course, their problems were self-inflicted in the match with Desideri's foolishness in getting himself sent off. But prior to that, the misfortune with Matthäus missing out, but it's not over yet. We shouldn't be committing the scoreline at the present to the history books, because it's not yet confirmed. Well, Franco Baresi gave it away, the free kick, Pepe Baresi to take it, and Andy Bremer prepared here, if he can, to launch one last shot to try and save a point for Inter. And it goes to Bremer, but the referee could have blown then for a retake. He looked as though he was shaping to do that. Here's Fontelan. And Costa Curta came across, clatters into the post. Milan not able to celebrate fully yet. Had a huge change in mood of Siro. Linesman flags for offside. Maybe that was the last chance for Inter. Well, Daniele Massaro, who's an over 30 now, and at times this season has been playing has been regarded here in Italy as the best football of his long career. And his goal has won it for Milan. They had to wait a long, long time for it to come. In the closing moments, and Inter reflects what a cruel game it can be. It looked for all the world as though they would hold out heroically, playing 51 minutes with 10 men, but they just couldn't manage it. Siro met the cross from Fuzel, the substitute, and that was the game for Milan, and 2 more points.